Hello, I'm Lyndsey Hookway. I'm a paediatric nurse, health visitor, international board certified lactation consultant and gentle sleep coach, and I'm going to talk to you about how to know that your baby is getting enough milk. So most women describe this almost primal need to feed their baby, and it seems to be that it's the thing that most women worry about is whether their baby is getting enough milk. It's very, very common for women to worry that they're not providing their baby with enough milk, but actually most women have a completely normal milk supply, and there are lots of ways to tell that your baby is getting enough milk. So this is something that you can teach yourself about so that you can feel more confident about your milk supply. There are really only two concrete signs that your baby's getting enough milk, and those are normal wheeze and poos and normal weight gain, but there are lots of other things that you can look for to be confident that your baby is getting enough milk as well. So after about day 5, your baby is going to have about 5 or 6 really heavy wet nappies. And if you want to know what a really heavy wet nappy feels like, then put about 4 tablespoons of water in a dry nappy, and that's roughly what sort of nappy weight you're looking for. And after about day 5, your baby is going to produce about 2 or 3 at least yellow poos about the size of a £2 coin every day. And many babies poo a lot more than this. And don't forget that a lot of times wee and poo is all mixed up together. So you might not get 5 wet nappies and 2 or 3 separate pooey nappies. You might just get 6 wet and pooey nappies, and it's not uncommon to have the occasional green poo. That's not a problem. If your baby always has green poo, then it's worth checking that over with your doctor or your health visitor, but certainly if it's just the occasional green poo, it's really nothing to worry about. And the other thing to know is that your baby is usually going to poo less after about the 4th to 6th week. So most babies slow down the amount of poo a few weeks down the line, which a lot of women worry about because they've been sort of counting the poops for several weeks, and then suddenly if the poo starts to slow down, this can make women feel very anxious that they're suddenly not producing enough milk. But this is just a normal variation in infant behaviour, and they will trouble you with fewer dirty nappies as they get older, which is usually a bit of a relief. And it's really easy for women to get quite obsessive about their baby's weight gain, because of course it's really quite a primal thing to need to nurture your baby, and it can be very hard to trust that your body is going to make enough milk for your baby, especially after that initial weight loss. So it's normal for babies to lose up to 7 to 10% of their weight loss when they're first born, and they will usually regain that by about 2 weeks. And your midwife is going to be keeping an eye on whether your baby is gaining the right amount of weight in the early days, and then this is something that you can get checked by your health visitor or at a local baby drop-in clinic. Generally babies will gain on average about 200 grams a week until they're about 3 months old, and then this can slow down, and this is completely normal as long as your baby is roughly sticking to the centile that they've been on for a while. That's absolutely fine. And don't forget that lots and lots of babies will sort of zigzag across their birth centile, so they might not stick rigidly to their line on the graph at the back of your baby's red book. They might sort of go a little bit up and a little bit below that line occasionally. That's nothing to worry about. And it's also really important not to weigh your baby too frequently, because of course babies don't always gain weight completely consistently. So you might find that your baby gains about 300 grams one week, and then only about 90 to 100 grams the next week. And you may well then panic the first week thinking that you have oversupply, and then the second week panic that you have undersupply, whereas actually if that baby had been weighed after 2 weeks, the average weight gain across 2 weeks would have been 400 grams, which is on average about 200 grams per week. So don't weigh your baby too frequently, because you're likely to see those sort of more minor variations in weight gain. So unless you've been asked to weigh your baby more frequently by your GP or paediatrician or health visitor, probably just try and make sure your baby's weighed roughly once a month, just to keep an eye on things. Now, most people will judge whether they have a good enough milk supply based on their baby's behaviour, and it's really normal for babies to be fussy at certain times of the day. And have a look at the video on why my baby is feeding so frequently, to understand a little bit more about why babies feed and the reasons that they need to feed frequently, especially in the early days. But there are lots of ways that you can tell that your baby is getting enough milk without needing to get your baby weighed. And one of them is that your baby will spit the breast out when they've had enough. So your baby should pop off the breast by themselves without you needing to break the seal and take your baby off. Your baby should be waking for feeds at least 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. Your baby's suckling pattern will slow down towards the end of the feed, and if you watch the video on fat content and frequency of feeding, you can understand a little bit more about how your baby's suckling pattern will change as they get through the feed. Sometimes you can hear your baby swallowing when they're actively feeding, and your baby should be content after most feeds. Now, this is the one that most people get confused by, because it's really normal for babies to have a fussy period at certain points of the day, or when they're tired, or when they're learning new things and they're having a bit of a developmental spurt of activity. So what you're looking for is that immediately after the feed, so they've come off the breast all by themselves, they should be fairly placid and easygoing and happy after that feed. Now, don't forget that might only last half an hour or an hour, maybe a little bit longer as your baby gets older, but what we're talking about is that immediately after the feed your baby is content and happy. So even if your baby is feeding very frequently, when they have finished the feed they seem to be perfectly happy. That's a really good sign that you are giving your baby plenty of milk. I hope that's helped you to understand a little bit about how you can be confident that your baby's getting enough milk. Thanks for watching.